And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, today we're going to be talking about the Wizards Museum Construction Kit. This actually sounds like a D&D role-playing toolbox, but it's not. It's actually a game, and I think in this game this is another one of those themes where I'm like, come on now. But you get a package, there's an assortment of tiny symbols, and so we made a game of it. Okay. I don't know what it is. This is really just an abstract game. A game in which you're trying to play tiles and trying to place them so that you get a larger group of symbols together than your opponent does. Is it any good? Well, let's look at it. At the beginning of the game, each player gets a tile that's placed in front of them. So let's take a closer look. Each tile is going to show one of the artifacts. There's 9 different artifacts. You can see here's a jade guy, but there's also a crystal ball or swords or a book. And then each of these artifacts also has different gates or sides to it. You see this one has a green, 2 reds and a blue. So they're basically all green, reds, or blue. Or there's also a 4th color, I suppose, that white one, but that's actually a wild. So you're going to have one of these in front of you, and then you're going to have 3 of them in your hand. Aha! And what you're going to do on your turn is you're going to play one of these tiles that either attaching it to yours, or you can even attach it to one of your opponents. Now you can never let your grid get more than 6 long or 6 wide, so you're kind of stuck into a 36 grid area. But once the last tile has been drawn from the box, each player's score will be checked. So let's say, for example, this was something that I ended up with in a game. I'm going to get points depending on how many players were involved in the game. Now, obviously, this isn't a complete game, although it could be if there was 5 players, because there's only 90 tiles involved in the game. What do I have here? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, 12, 18 tiles. So yeah, it's very possible that this would be all I would end up with. And so in a 5-player game, I'm going to look. If I don't have a specific tile of collection, then I will score no points for that. And actually, I get 10 points for that. So it's good to have no artifact tile of a certain kind, because 10 points is a big deal. So I look at here, and I say, okay, well, let's go through each one. Ravens. I got 4 ravens, and in a 5-player game, 4 gives me 5 points. Well, that's okay. Books. I got 2 books, and in a 5-player game, 2 books gives me 0. Statues. I got 4 statues, so that's another 5 points. Yay, I'm up to 10. Hats. I have only 1 hat, so I actually lose a point for only having 1. Down to 9 points. Harps. Hey, I don't have any harps in my thing, so that's another 10 points. I'm up to 19. Crystal balls. There's another -1, so that's 18. Staffs, another -1, so that's 17. Jade, well, that's worth nothing because there's 2 of them. And then weapons, and I have 3 of them, so I get 1 whopping point for that. So you can see I don't get a lot. What I'm trying to do is get a whole pile of one type. If I managed to get all 10 of one of the specific types, I would have got 35 points. And there's a little chart here that shows you what to do for each number of players. Getting all 10 of one type in a 5-player game, I'm going to say, is virtually impossible unless you happen to draw all those and everyone else is falling asleep. When you're putting these tiles together, obviously you're constrained about the colors and the sides, but you're also watching your opponents because you might put one there just to block them. But you'll find that usually you're playing tiles in your own. The only time you'll throw tiles in opponents is if you want to make sure they have at least one of a type so that they don't get the 10 points for that, or so that you can stop them from getting a big group. But what your whole goal is trying to get as big of a group as possible and to keep yours down to as few types as possible. Because you can see if you only have 1 or 2 types in yours, you're going to win. So you could end up, and I have had this play, I just said it doesn't happen very often, but I have played a game where people very rarely played in their own at all, and almost always played exclusively in others, so that they could expand the others. And when that happens, the game gets much progressively better. Well, there you have it. It's not a bad game, and yet doesn't really outshine anything else. There's nothing really here that's that interesting. Well, the fact that you don't want to have any of different kinds is interesting. You can throw a tile into somebody else's of a certain type. I can put a jade statue into your museum just so that you don't get those 10 points. That's interesting. There's certainly be luck of the tile draw, and the tiles, I went through and looked at all the different sets. And some sets have more red sides, some sets have more green sides, some sets have more blue sides as a total. But I'm really not sure what that has to do strategy-wise other than just how they distributed the colors. It's interesting. It's mildly entertaining. I'm just not seeing any kind of long-term future for this. This is something that I would play on the iPad. And I would play it 3 or 4 times and I would be done. And I think that's where I'm at with the board game too. You said, let's play this? I'm like, all right, I'll give it a try. And then I play it a couple more times and I would say, and well, I have done that. But I mean, if you asked me to play it now, I'd be like, yeah, I played that. And if a game doesn't want to make me play too many times, I think there's a problem. And not a problem, but it's just not worth me getting. Now, it still may appeal to you. You may have looked at that and said, that sounds really neat, the abstract going back and forth. And I can see that. And I can forgive the weak theme just because, well, it is an abstract game. So what kind of theme can you add to it? So, thumbs up, thumbs down. I'm real neutral on this one. I guess I'm gonna go with a tentative thumbs down because I'm not gonna keep it. Although I don't keep that many games well, don't look behind me. But I mean, I really get rid of tons and tons of games. But you know what? Even if I had a small collection, I probably wouldn't keep this because there's just nothing that striking about it that I'd keep it over any other game.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find the latest board game news at Dicetowernews.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Fun Again Games, the world's best game source. Fun Again Games has over 5,000 games available. Check them out at funagain.com.